Hey, I'm Kelly, and I'm glad that you're here today joining me. I'm talking about friendship with one of my really good friends, Jess, and we're going to be talking about something that I think all of us deal with in friendship. We are always feeling a little bit like, am I in or am I out with some of my friends? Do I have a best friend? Is my friend who I thought was my best friend? Are they someone else's? Are they calling someone else their best friend? And all the insecurities that come with that. And I think we all deal with that across the board. And I know that's something, especially in adulthood, that I've heard you verbalize that's been a struggle in your friendship.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you, Jess, to just share some of your story.
Sure. Happy to. I mean, my friendship story in particular, for me, I felt like in high school and even in college, not that friendships were just like easy breezy, friendships are always messy, but I felt like I had my crew, we hung out a lot together and we had a special relationship, and when I went to college I kind of found another crew. And so the regular kind of difficulties in friendship that are just always there.
Right.
But I feel like once I was out of college and kind of going into that other side of adulthood, I just struggled with friendship so much more than I expected. And a lot of that was we've moved a lot. That doesn't help.
Yeah. Always being the new person.
Yeah. Always being the new person. And just it's different. I'm married, I got married and I had kids and I was working, then I wasn't working. And just, you get to that point where it's like, well, in high school, you have consistency. And then in college, there's a lot more consistency.
You've built in friendships like with your dorm.
Yeah, right. People that you see every day. Yeah. And, and then you get out of that and everybody has so much going on in their life. And so it can be really challenging to feel like, oh, I have my people, to feel secure. I know that's how I felt. And so I feel like there have been just a lot of times where I found myself in adulthood being like just really insecure about my relationships and being like, what is going on? Like, why do I feel like this? I don't remember feeling like this when I was younger. Is there something wrong with me? Have I changed? Is this, like, what's going on? And I feel in a much like better and healthier place as time goes on, to be able to kind of think through those things. And I've gotten better at being new and moving. So that helps too.
Which you've just recently been new. You're about a year living in the Dallas area, which is where we both live right now.
Yeah. And so that was just another transition. And it's funny that like one of the things that made this move particularly hard was that we were living in Atlanta, and by the time we left, I had so many good friendships and relationships. And I was just so devastated I had actually kind of felt like, I had gotten into a place where, part of that was, I had a lot of relationships, but also I had, reached a more healthy understanding of it. Yeah. And I just felt like in such a good place relationally. And I hadn't felt like that in many years. And then I was like, okay, great. Let's start over again.
Now that it was all great, let's move again.
Right. Yeah. And so that was really hard. But when I first moved to Atlanta, it wasn't like that automatically. And so that experience there, I think, has helped me moving here in terms of realizing like, okay, here we go. It's always hard in the beginning, and you just gotta do it and push yourself and those kind of things. And so, I've definitely felt a lot of insecurity as I've gotten older in relationships for a lot of different reasons, moving one of them. But yeah.
Well, and I think what's interesting is that someone on the outside of your life in all those different places would probably have never guessed that that's something that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because you guys have often moved so that you guys are being involved in churches. So you're coming with some built-in community. You have relationships with people. And I think that's a myth that's good to destroy That we often think, I'm the only one who feels insecure. I'm the only one asking these questions. And oh, look at all these people. We can walk in on a Sunday morning to church, see all these people talking to their friends, and we just assume, oh, everybody's got their place to be and their people who are their people. And I'm inside like wondering, where am I in the mix? And they might all be thinking the exact same thing. And so it's good to kind of take the wall down and be like, actually, I think behind that, we all feel that way.
Yeah. Like knowing people is not the same as like being known by people.
That's true.
You know? And so certainly I'm sure that there are people who would probably, you know, have seen my life at that time. And I knew a lot of people, you know, I was involved, but I was just feeling that missing of that like deep kind of being known and I can count on you and we're, you know, connected in a deep way, where unless you kind of like press into that, you can, you know, feel like, oh, I'm that person that's on the outside, but that, you know, social butterfly that's running around and talking to everybody that you're convinced is like, is friends with everybody is feeling that exact same thing. And that for me has been really helpful to, like you said, destroy that thought of, I'm weird, I'm the only one who, you know, doesn't have a best friend, you know, or whatever it is. There's so many things that can happen because I be insecure about that.
Well, and I think what you just said too is interesting to bring up into the conversation is this idea of a best friend that I think we hear people talk about that, say, oh, my best friend, so-and-so, or you meet someone new and in conversation, you think you're really good friends. And then they throw that in there. Oh, well, my best friend, blah, 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 who lives back in this state.
Your best friend is like, hey, my best friend, and that's not me. Okay,
you're
great.
Like, oh, cool. I thought we were closer than we were. But what do we even mean when we say that? Like, are people, you know, how would we define best friend? Maybe how does the culture define that for us? And is that even a healthy idea to live with? Like needing a best friend or all of that.
I know for me, it sounds maybe silly, but like I did have people who I thought were like my best friends that I hung with a lot in high school and college. Like, you know, we watched Now and Then, and you know, there's all these movies that we kind of grew up in that time that were like, oh, this is, you know, kind of early squad goals.
Before that was a hashtag.
And you know, and so I think I didn't quite realize how much that was affecting how I thought about friendships. And I think it can set you up in a bad way as you grow up, you know, like as you become an adult and you realize, you know, there's just so much shifting and changing. And I think that you can definitely put security in that, like, this is my person, this is my people. Okay, well, now they're moving away, or now they got married, or now they just met some other friends that they're cool with. And I think that can cause just, insecurities again, but just the idea of like, okay, so am I in a bad place now? That like, you know, like how important is that? You know, and I don't think that it's bad if you have a best friend.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I will say, depending on how though you're operating in that friendship.
That's true.
Any friendship can be unhealthy, just like any relationship.
Right. Absolutely.
So if that's like all the relational eggs are in that one basket. I have no other friends but my best friend. I would say that's probably not good. Yeah. That person can't bear the weight of that for you. Yeah. But like if I'm going to talk about my childhood friend that I've known forever and we just have a really unique bond. Yeah. It'd be like, she's my best friend. Like she's been there the longest. Maybe that's what I mean by best friend is she's been around the longest. Or maybe it means genuinely my closest friend. Right. And sometimes circumstantially, especially I think if you're overseas or other places, you only have one friend who's like a Christian and you really bond with them, you might say, it's my best friend. Like we share something others don't. I think that's totally fine. Yeah. But sometimes we're trying to use that best friend thing, not because we want to be a friend to somebody, but we're trying to suck
we want that firm ground to kind of stand on that like I have these people in place that are, you know, a safety net or whatever. And certainly that can get distorted. For me, I have one of my really good friends who, I maybe would call my best friend, but, she has like a whole kind of crew that she is like, has been friends since college with. And, there have been seasons where I struggled with that insecurity of feeling like, maybe she's my best friend, or like I'm her best friend, maybe she's not, but all those weird things that you do to kind of like measure all of that up. And I just think at the end of the day, that's really not helpful. And that goes back to just being, what kind of friend are you going to be? Like selfless, like, well, what's the point of this? So that I can say, oh, I have a best friend and nobody can be her friend, or am I like, I love that you have these other relationships that have been in your life for so long. You go on girls trips. That's great. I can like have joy in you in that area, in winning, and it not be a threat to me. And I think that we can miss out on healthy friendships and relationships because we feel threatened by the other friends in our friends' lives. And it's just like there's room for all of us. Like we can do that. And I think that you can kind of sometimes distance yourself if you're feeling those insecurities when, I think the place that you want to be in, a healthy place, is to look and say, I'm so glad my friend has these friends. They're special to her. And I know that she loves me, and I know that she cares about me, and I'm important to her. And it's just not, I don't see how it's ever helpful to do that. Like, where am I on the scale of best friend in your life?
If you were to make a list, where would I fall on the list?
Right. Because that's, in the end, it's really self-seeking.
It is. And I think that's the goal, is to be able to see behind the motive of us doing that, of trying to figure out where we stack up with people, is we're looking to that person to give us our value and our worth and our meaning, and they can't do that. And that's not right to ask them to either, even if it's backhandedly or very subtly, like sending phishing texts, like, that are like, yeah, I know you're probably too busy for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's not being a good friend. It's like, oh, we want this person to be our friend. But, in that effort of trying to build a friend, we're really being manipulative, and we're really only concerned about, how we feel in their circle. Like, where do I fit in for them? And at the end of the day, it ends up backfiring a little bit because you are self-seeking and you're so concerned about where you're at that you're not thinking, about the benefit of your friend.
Well, I think that brings up an interesting point when I think about somebody who might be hearing this and feeling like, I can't do that. That feels, just to be that selfless in friendship, either feels scary, or like, where then do I take the weight of my need to belong and have meaning? And I think that's where the gospel comes in, is having access to God through Jesus. We have value, meaning, and worth through him. I know that I would not be able to be that for my friends if I didn't regularly go back to the fountain of living waters, go back to God and talk to him about it. And I have, when I first moved here, I met a friend, and I remember texting her one day to see if we could hang out. She was really one of the only friends I had at that point. And she was hanging out with another friend who I also knew, and was just really casually saying like, oh, I can't right now, I'm with so-and-so. And it just flooded my mind with insecurities.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm the new girl. That's right. Like, I'm not as close.
It takes literally nothing at all. To like barely anything for you to be like, I'm the worst. No one likes me. They're like, they just said, I'm busy,
I'm busy, I can't.
And you're like.
So pretty much what we've concluded is that friendship in adulthood is really hard.
Yes. That's the end of the story.
I think it's not until you get into outside of college that you don't really realize how easy and built in it was for you in high school and college.
Yeah.
And so you get into this season of like adulthood, and whether you're working or you get married or you don't, all of it is hard. And so what is something that maybe you could say to someone who's just entering that season? They're maybe just graduating from college, they have their first job maybe, or they're just starting into this season of, I know friendship matters and I want friends, but what encouragement would you give them to maybe avoid maybe some of the pitfalls you had in your life as they go forward?
I kind of wish that somebody, would have helped me with expectations a little more. I think in any situation, you can kind of come up with expectations that you kind of subconsciously hold, whether it's before you get married or, whatever. And then you hold everything up to this thing. And so I think for me, and what I wish would have been helpful is just that it is going to be hard, and
that's not a sign you're doing something wrong.
Exactly.
Right? If it is hard.
Right. Yeah. And, and that can be said in a lot of situations that hard is not bad. And so, but it does take a lot of work, it takes a lot of work. And, I'm sure there are some people watching who friendships in high school and college weren't easy breezy, and they're all like, friendship's been hard for me, please. But, and maybe you already know that it's really hard. But there is a lot about the consistency of seeing the same people every day when you go to school and you're in homeroom or you're in your classes or whatever on campus, that you don't realize is like a built-in part of why you're always connecting. And so, church has been really helpful in terms of, one of the things when we moved here, our church here is much bigger than our church in Atlanta. And so I would meet people and then I wouldn't necessarily run into them again next Sunday. And it made me realize how much of a core part that was to some of my friendships in Atlanta was a touch point for us, was that Sunday morning, hey, see your kids, hang out, even if we didn't hang out that day, we're checking in, we're seeing each other. And so I think, church can be a helpful consistency to build those relationships around.
I think too, the other thing we might be able to tell people is not to let the culture or our own, maybe other people we see around us define what our expectations of friendship should be. Because I do think there's a tendency, whether it's, the hashtag squad goals, right? And people posting stuff, or BFF goals. I've seen that before too. Or memes that we see. I do think there's an elevation culturally of best friendship. Yeah. This exclusive union between two people that's super heightened. We don't need to receive that as a culture, as an expectation for ourselves and go and let the world around us define it for us. Oh, if I don't have that relationship, I'm not complete.
Absolutely.
No, you have Christ and you're complete. And so you can now be for one another, whether you end up with somebody who feels like a best friend.
Feels like that or not.
Or if God provides for you maybe a few different friends and maybe they're all really good friends, but you don't have a particular squad. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
And you can flourish in that. And so not to let our expectations be defined by the world around us. Just becomes a burden,
Yeah, it does. It's not helpful. Becomes a weight on your friend or the people around you if you are just constantly trying to measure it to something that is not even you. It's not even your people. It's this is and that can be said in so many things. But I agree with that.
That's good. Well, thanks, Jess, for talking with me today about this and sharing some of your journey. I think we all need to be reminded we're not alone in that journey. So I hope you don't feel alone hearing this and just knowing that all of us have these moments of insecurity and that there is something we can do. We can go to Christ and then we can be for one another. So thanks for listening today.